Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. Good to see you all. So as we wait for a few more members to trickle in, I just want to let you know that we'll be doing a little bit of movement today. So consider grabbing a few yoga blocks or books or something of the equivalent. I'm going to sit on a bolster to start. A blanket will be nice, or some tabletop that we will engage in for the knees. And any other prop that you think will be helpful and auspicious today. And once you gather those things, I invite you to come to a comfortable seated position to check in. I'm going to come to an easy cross-legged position in Sukhasana, and I have a bolster underneath my hips. Sometimes I use a yoga block for this, just elevate a little bit to make this more accessible. We'll play a little bit with this if this is available for you today. Otherwise, you can still take this from a chair or another position if this cross-legged position doesn't feel auspicious in the early morning. From the seated position, begin to settle in. Allow yourself to fidget with some intention of grounding. Perhaps a grounding in the sits bones, perhaps a grounding through the knees if the knees are in contact with the floor. So I'm moving myself up a little bit, and that begins to form how I perceive my base in about a kind of a triangle base. So grounding down through the seat, and perhaps that complements an expansion up through the spine. Grounding through the seat and expanding up through the spine. Expanding up all the way through the spine, perhaps all the way to the crown of the head. Without needing to make it perfect, just embracing the spirit of those engagements. Perhaps there's some effort there. Perhaps they're coming with ease. And I invite you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. We've already begun to bring our awareness to the physical consciousness. Just noticing how the body is showing up today. Noticing if we've had an opportunity to nourish or move, and how that's shown up, how that's manifested in this moment, and how we perceive that sensation and that experience. Just noticing. Perhaps grounding through the sits bones allows for a little bit of an expansion upward with the sternum, and maybe that allows for the collarbone to open. Maybe the shoulder blades can fall back. Just that little slight elevation of the sternum. Maybe there's a little bit of a pitch forward in the pelvis. And how does that ground and expand? And then shifting our awareness to the breath.
Recording in progress.
Noticing the qualities of the breath. Noticing where the breath resides different areas, maybe in the upper chest or down in the belly or in the side ribs along the back. Notice if you have an expectation of where the breath should be. Just notice your perception of where it is. Notice if there's a misperception of where it is as you sit and experience the breath. Noticing those qualities in all four parts of the breath: an inhale, a pause, an exhale, a pause, just checking in. Then notice the state of the mind. Noticing how the mind is showing up this morning, how it's been nourished or moved. Notice if there is a lot of effort in the mind or if there is an ease. Perhaps the mind feels grounded or expanding or busy. Taking a moment to observe. And acknowledging that we've been cultivating this observer of the physical, energetic, and the mind state, and how we're cultivating perhaps a little bit more intuitive observation as we increase our focus or maybe ground our focus on sensation and experience. And just notice that transformation of tuning into the observer. Notice if that focus begins to expand in a balance between effort and ease as we experience our inner wisdom. I invite you to take the hands to the heart if you'd like, and perhaps bow the head just gently. And consider if there may be an intention that comes up. Perhaps it's been rooted into some of our early check-in of grounding and expanding, effort and ease. Or maybe there's something else that is something you've been working on through the week or coming up in this moment. Take a moment to breathe that in. And maybe with the exhale, send it out. And I want to start by taking a moment to rub the palms together from the seated position. Notice the friction in the palms and the fascia, that thick tissue in the palm, in the pads of the finger. And I'm starting to notice that warmth begin to be something that is retained in that tissue. So just that little bit of warmer sensation in the palms through the friction of rubbing them together. And then a very gentle application over the eyes, not pressing into the eyes at all, but just allowing for the warmth to be experienced around the eyes. And with the eyes closed, allow the eyes to travel up, staying closed, and then allow the eyes to travel downward, staying closed. Coming back to center, shift the eyes over to the right, staying closed. Through center and over to the left. staying closed. And then circling the eyes clockwise. And counterclockwise. And then gently resting the hands down. And allow your eyelids to just softly begin to open like a curtain that's coming up. Begin to take in the light in the room. And begin to find a visual anchor in front of you that might be the spirit of a horizon line. So looking for a drishti or a visual anchor. It doesn't have to be really concentrated, one fine point. Think about balancing between effort and ease as you anchor a point of focus. Ground through the sits bones and expand up through the spine. And notice the focus of the horizon line and some of the dimensional here. And seeing if you can stay centered on the visual focus on the horizon line. Just shift the eyes over to the right. Staying center with the nose and the face, but look over to the right. And take a breath, staying grounded in your seat. Come back to center. And take a look over to the left, staying centered with your direction of the face, but looking with the eyes to the left. And come back to center. And we'll try this again, and I offer you invite you to play with the arms out at the sides and the thumbs pointed up. And just notice with your focus on the horizon, if you can see the thumbs in your peripheral vision. And then play with moving the eyes from side to side and notice the thumbs. Allow yourself to take in anything else in your sight line as well. So I see a table, chair, floor, desk, bookshelf, pillow, yoga blocks, thumb. You can go at whatever pace makes sense for you. And then gently release the hands down, come back to center. Ground through the sits bones, expand up through the spine, through the crown of the head. Take a look over to the right, keeping the head pointed forward. Take another breath here. And then allow your head to turn over the right shoulder. And just find an easy rotation of the cervical spine, still grounded through the sit bones. And then gently, let's return back to the center. Grounding through the sits bones, up through the spine, just to check back into neutral, noticing the effect of the right turn. Take your sight line to the left, but keep the face pointed forward. 2 breaths. Maybe on that second exhale, rotating. Still grounding and expanding and finding the effort and the ease to rotate through the cervical spine. Come back through the center. One more move for our cervical spine here. Keeping the sight line on the horizon, keeping the face pointed in that direction, look down to the right shoulder. So perhaps it's in your sight line, maybe not. Looking down to the right shoulder, and then gently we're going to allow the right ear to come down to the right shoulder. Option to close the eyes, or maybe look up to the left, or maybe close the eyes and look up to the left. See if you can stay grounded through the sits bones and stay engaged up through the rest of the spine to make this a gentle lateral bend in the cervical spine. And then gently come back up to center. Notice neutral. Notice how we perceive neutral after that side bend. Take a look at the left shoulder. Grounding and extending. And then gently allow for the side bend, left ear towards the left shoulder. Maybe taking a look up to the right or closing the eyes. And just allow that to be perhaps a little bit of a counter or a complement to the directional movement of the cervical spine. Easy breath. And come back to center. Now, I invite you to consider the seat, and if you're in this cross-legged position, to just shift the leg that's in front to the back and the leg that's in back to the front. And perhaps that'll take a little bit of settling. So notice what that new grounding base feels like. So for me, this right leg being in front is something that's different from what I would normally go to in a cross-legged position. And I have perhaps some attachment to having that left leg in front, or maybe there's a little bit of aversion in that. But taking a moment to notice how those are playing out as I reorganize neutral and I reorganize the visual anchor, start to play with those grounding efforts through the sits bones, through the base, through the breath, through the mind, grounding, and then expanding upward through the spine, crown of the head, maybe expanding through the collarbone. And from here, with an inhale, reach the arms up. And let's just gently allow the left fingertips to come down to the floor, or maybe a block. And continue to reach up through the right fingertips. So I'm taking my sight line up here as well. I'm still grounding through my base, reaching up through the right hand, and I'm looking for a complement of grounding and expanding so that I'm not collapsed too much. I don't have an expectation of what kind of side bend I'm going to experience in this early hour of the morning, because I'm still waking up the spine. But perhaps breath by breath, I get a little more information. And then let's gently just come back to neutral. Take a moment in neutral. And sweep the arms up on an inhale. And then gently the right fingertips to a block or the floor, still reaching up through the left arm. Grounding and expanding. Noticing effort in the breath, in the body. Noticing the focus in the mind. And gently coming back to center. Inhale and reach the arms up. Exhale and cactus the elbows out to the side. Think about hugging your shoulder blades to your spine just a little bit, and then inhale, reach up. Exhale and cactus down and feel some of the sensation in the back of the heart, as if you could open the front and contract the back. One more time. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, cactusing down. And then find that neutral in the lateral plane. So there's engagement in the front and the back. Take an inhale, and with your exhale, rotate to your right. And then gently place the hands down wherever it feels auspicious. See if maybe the left hand can come to the right knee. and find the balance of effort and ease as you rotate. Maybe we have some breakfast or an elimination that needs to still process. So just kind of notice how we can ground and create space there. Perhaps reach the right arm up if that's available. Think about leaning forward just slightly. Think about lifting the sternum towards the chin just a little bit, and then allow for that little bit of side bend. Again, it's a very subtle engagement as we rotate slightly and side bend just slightly. Maybe another breath here, still grounding, rooting down through the sits bones. And return to neutral. Take an inhale and exhale, or maybe through all 4 phases of the breath here. On your next inhale, sweep the arms up. Cactus the elbows down. Find that neutral front and back engagement through the shoulders and the upper torso. On your next exhale, perhaps rotating around to the left. And maybe the left feels different from rotating to the right. Taking the hand down wherever it makes sense. Rooting down through the sits bones, perhaps reaching the left arm up. And maybe a slight forward lean with the chest up a little bit towards the chin, not much, it's a subtle engagement. And then perhaps that little bit of side bend. With all these subtle little engagements, take a moment to perceive the directional forces where you're efforting and how maybe there could be less effort, maybe a little bit more ease. And how that grounding might provide some expansion. And gently, let's return to center. And from that neutral position, come back and check in with the cross-legged position and just notice if your perception of that cross-legged position has shifted. Maybe it's been in that position for too long. Maybe it's started to become a more easy position to embrace. Notice the quality of the breath. Maybe notice some of the qualities in the mind after that little bit of seated breathing and moving. And in the next 30 seconds, take as much time as you need to come to a tabletop position. I'm going to move my bolster out of the way over here. Perhaps you'll want a blanket between or beneath the knees to soften the floor a little bit, making that a little bit more gentle and accommodating. Consider the wrists beneath the shoulders and the knees beneath the hips. Consider what you might want beneath your shins, toes, ankles. Maybe the hands are slightly in front. Maybe there's even a blanket underneath the palms there. Settle in and ground into your tabletop position. And maybe with a little bit of moving and fidgeting, we can take in a little bit more information about how that should play out. So allow yourself to inhale and expand through the front body. Maybe the chest reaches forward. And as you exhale, perhaps pushing the floor away and rounding. Inhaling and exhaling a few more cat-cows at your own pace, in your own fidgeting expression that allows you to wake up the spine in this sagittal plane, that forward and back movement of the spine. And when you're ready, just come to a neutral position, tabletop, and play a little bit with moving laterally. So the left shoulder and the left hip in the same direction, opening up through the right side. And the right shoulder and the right hip to the right, opening up the left side. Grounding through the arms and the knees. And expanding into the side body one more time. Coming back to the center. And an option here to take a twist where perhaps you'll come down onto the forearm, dropping the right shoulder down, Maybe you'll come down onto the, or come down a little bit lower with the right shoulder, right hand underneath the left. And just an option to maybe even brace the head with a block or a bolster. You just stay here for a breath or two. So still on the knees in almost a puppy dog-like position. If your head is hovering, it can be a little bit more efforting to hold yourself up. If there is something to rest the head on, perhaps there's a little more ease there as you rotate the upper body. And press the left hand into the floor. Come back to that tabletop shape. And set that up on the other side, noticing that you may need different props on one side versus the other. And you may want to take a different shape. But if you're coming underneath, perhaps there's a little bit of a pillow or a block there in that rotation. And see if you can find a little stability to allow a little bit of expansion there. We'll gently come back up to tabletop position, keeping the blocks close by. Extend the left leg back and touch the left toes down, and then spin the inside of the left arch to the floor. And make sure that you're feeling like the right knee is comfortable on the mat or blanket or pillow, and start to come into this side tabletop position or modified side plank position. So you can always take this left foot out in front perhaps, and maybe the right shin behind you a little bit, and that will expand the base. Expanding the base may provide a little more stability. So check in to see how that base is showing up for you this morning. And consider if that base allows you to expand the left arm up. Maybe taking a look back at the horizon line and maybe noticing this new relationship of that peripheral vision from thumb to thumb. So you can always keep the hand down if that helps to stabilize. You can also see if you'd like to expand through the mouth with a smile, or maybe that left leg floating up, grounding and expanding. And then gently, if that left leg is up, set it back down. Let's use the blocks to set ourselves up in a gate position. So with the right knee down and the blocks supporting, or anything else that makes sense to help with the height. Allow yourself to come into this extended left leg, but basically tabletop on the blocks, or if you could be on the floor here as well. And from this position, you could just stay in the gate, maybe reaching the hips back, maybe even playing slightly with that side bend. Or if you'd like, and it feels like the right knee feels safe and stable to stack up, option to come up into the extended kneeling position. So I'm still grounded through that left leg. Kind of helps to have my left hand on a block, so there's not too much weight on my right knee or as much. And then perhaps a little bit of this side bend here. You can stay here, or if you'd like to play with coming back through that side version of the side tabletop, excuse me. And you can take a little bit more kinetic movement climbing on the blocks. And I'm just going to play back and forth for another breath. And then we'll come down. We'll set up tabletop. And allow yourself to fidget out any little tension that might have built, or experience any of the space that was gained there. From tabletop position, start to set up a neutral spine and reach the right toes back. And turn the right foot toward the floor and consider kicking the leg in front for support, maybe the shin coming back on the left leg and beginning to stack over the left wrist. Maybe playing with the right arm. Just notice if you can expand from the center here. So sometimes just taking the right hand to the belly, the top hand to the belly, noticing where is the center of gravity? How's it changed with this new base of support and also this new orientation, side, this lateral perception. As we reach the arms up and take a look at the horizon line again, what do the thumbs look like from this side orientation? Perhaps there is a connection in that focus that allows you to expand a little bit more, maybe expanding through the mouth with a smile. And gently, if that right leg is up, setting it down and playing with the blocks, supporting that left knee. Coming to this forward position, and I love this position so much, I could just stay here and get so much out of this really grounded version of this gate position. Another option is to stack upward and maybe expand. Reaching the left fingertips up, grounding through the left knee and the right leg. Option to stay or perhaps play. Coming back to that side position. And then the vertical. I'm going to play one more time. And coming back to our tabletop shape. All right. And from tabletop, let's just take a moment to keep the blocks close by in case you would like them for our next little journey. We're going to flip the toes, hover the hips, and reach the hips up and back. And then if you'd like to do a down dog on the blocks, perhaps that'll feel nice. Pressing down into the blocks to lift the hips up. Pressing through the feet to lift the hips up. Grounding through the arms. And then gently, maybe bending the knees and walking the blocks back towards the feet. And coming to a supported forward fold. Perhaps inhaling to extend the spine and reach the hips back, grounding through the feet, vertical, horizontal lines. From here, with a wide base, consider taking the hands to the knees in this rested athlete's position. And then drop the left shoulder down, reach the right shoulder up so that the upper torso gets a little bit of a twist. I like to inhale in the center and exhale as I rotate, reaching the hips back, grounding through all four corners of the feet. Maybe another time on each side. Coming back through center. Find the base. Rooting the legs through the floor. So I'm going to bring them a little bit tighter than that wide base with my knees bent. Maybe even my hands on the thighs as I push the floor down to draw the belly in and rise all the way up to standing. Root through the feet and extend high through the crown of the head. Perhaps engaging through the inner thighs. Inhale, sweep the arms up. Root through the feet and consider a clasp of the hands. Maybe it's just the thumbs clasp, or perhaps with the right fingers clasping the left wrist. Root through the feet and stretch up and over to the right side. Still looking for expansion through grounding. Another breath here and return to center. Root down through both feet. clasping in whichever way that makes sense for you, and reach up and over to the left side. Stay reaching upward. And come back through center. Inhale, reaching both arms up. Exhale, hinge and fold forward. Maybe inhaling to come halfway. And then make our way back to a down dog or a supported down dog with the blocks, or maybe it even looks a little bit like a tabletop position here. And a supported tabletop with the blocks is what I'm demonstrating here. So I'm not in the perfect triangle or pyramid position, but I have the spirit of lifting the hips up and pushing into the blocks at a distance that allows me for a good base, to have a good base and feel stable. And then I just want to play a little bit with rotating. So maybe I'll take the left hand over to the right side, and I'm going to bend a little bit through that left knee to achieve that. Maybe I'll come back a little further as I have permission, and pressing down through the arm as I rotate around. Just another breath here. Perhaps you can even find a little bit of release in the upper back and the neck. And then come back to the support of that neutral position. And maybe there's an exhale that helps explore this rotation. And just breathe into it, noticing how the breath can facilitate some of the effort and ease, balancing that out. Notice if the breath goes away, over efforting, maybe coming back out of that shape, finding that balance. Maybe letting go a little bit, and enjoying the ease. And then gently return to that supported tabletop, and then gently place your knees down on the floor. From there, let's come back to our seated position. So come back to perhaps the seat that you took at the beginning with a block or a bolster. And make a discerning choice about which leg you decide to put there. Notice if you have an attachment. Notice if you have an aversion. Notice if there's a different perception about how that leg shows up. Begin to ground through your base and extend upward through the spine. I invite you to close your eyes. Take a moment to notice any shift that has occurred as a result of the practice. Taking in the sounds outside. Maybe the temperature of the room. Maybe the feeling, the textures of the clothing on your skin, the mat beneath you. Notice how you're aware of your place in space, and if that's changed from that first seat. Notice if there's any different qualities in the body. Feeling of grounding after that effort to ground. How does it show up in our seat? That effort to expand. How does it show up now as we check in and integrate the practice? Noticing the qualities of the breath in all four parts. Noticing the difference between an expectation and an experience. Noticing the mind state. And shifting the awareness to the qualities of the observer. And in this moment where we are integrating some of our movement, our asana, along with our inner practices, perhaps that little transformation, that little shift might be something that we take with us. That transformational wisdom. I invite you to take your hands to your heart. And perhaps gently bow the head. Maybe recall the intention from the beginning of practice, or maybe a new intention has come to light. Take a moment to breathe that in. And with your exhale, send it out. I invite you to gently open your eyes. You can begin to make your way off your mat. And I think we can give a little time for a little bio break of 3 minutes. I see 9:45 now. So perhaps at 9:48, we'll come back and just have a quick check-in.